Tonight, the air is still. A faint breeze moves across the dark waters of the Nile. The river glides quietly beneath a sky filled with pale stars. Along the banks, clusters of mud brick homes rest in silence. Small cooking fires have long since faded. Families sleep beneath simple roofs. Dogs lie curled in dusty corners. The last voices of the day have disappeared into the warm night. Far beyond the great temples and stone monuments that later generations would remember, thousands of ordinary people sleep through the darkness. Farmers, bakers, potters, fishermen, laborers, women who spent the day grinding grain, children who chased one another through narrow village paths. Among them is a man whose work rarely appears in ancient inscriptions. He is a donkey handler. His name has been forgotten by history. The sound of his voice vanished thousands of years ago. Yet his days helped keep the world around him moving. As the night slowly drifts toward dawn, he lies sleeping on a woven reed mat inside a small mud brick house. The room is simple. A few clay jars stand against one wall. Baskets rest in the corner. A small oil lamp has gone dark. The air inside is warm. Outside, the desert holds the heat of the previous day. For a few more moments, everything remains quiet. Then somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls. The sound drifts softly through the sleeping village. Another answers. Soon the first hints of morning begin to appear above the eastern horizon. The donkey handler opens his eyes. The day is beginning once again. He sits slowly and rubs the sleep from his face. His muscles already feel stiff from yesterday's work. Carrying supplies across dusty roads demands strength. Walking mile after mile beside animals under the Egyptian sun leaves its mark on the body. For a moment he remains seated. The house is still. Other family members sleep nearby. Then he stands. His feet touch the cool floor. He reaches for a simple linen garment and slips it over his shoulders. The fabric feels rough from many washings. Outside, the village is waking. A woman sweeps dust from her doorway. Someone coughs. A donkey brays somewhere beyond the houses. The sky grows brighter little by little. The donkey handler steps into the early morning air. This is one of his favorite moments of the day. The heat has not yet arrived. The wind feels gentle. The river reflects soft shades of silver and pale blue. For a few quiet minutes, Egypt seems almost peaceful enough to forget the hard labor waiting ahead. He walks toward a small enclosure where several donkeys spent the night. The animals notice him immediately. Large ears twitch. Hooves shift against packed earth. One donkey lets out a low sound. The handler knows each animal well. He recognizes their habits, their moods, and their stubborn personalities. Some walk willingly. Others require patience every single day. He reaches out and strokes the neck of one gray donkey. The animal lowers its head slightly. A working relationship built over years does not require many words. The donkey has carried grain, pottery, baskets, and tools along dusty roads countless times. The handler has guided it through crowded villages, across dry fields, and along river paths. Together they have spent much of their lives walking. Nearby, other workers are beginning their own mornings. A baker prepares dough before sunrise. A fisherman checks his nets. Farm laborers gather tools. Every person follows routines practiced so often that they feel as natural as breathing. The donkey handler begins preparing feed. The animals eat slowly. The sound is soft and steady. Above them, birds start appearing in the brightening sky. The eastern horizon now glows with warm gold. Another day has arrived in ancient Egypt. Soon the village becomes busier. Children emerge from houses. Women carry jars. Men speak quietly while preparing for work. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The smell of baking bread drifts through the morning air. For many families, bread forms the center of daily meals. Grain must be harvested, transported, stored, ground into flour, mixed into dough, and baked. At nearly every stage of that process, donkeys play an important role. Without them, moving heavy loads becomes much harder. The donkey handler understands this better than anyone. His work may seem simple. Yet villages depend upon it. Markets depend upon it. Builders depend upon it. Farmers depend upon it. Even great construction projects rely on animals carrying supplies from place to place. The world around him moves one load at a time. And much of that movement happens on four patient legs. As sunlight spreads across the land, the handler begins loading supplies for the morning journey. Bundles of grain. Clay jars. Tools. Woven baskets. The weight must be balanced carefully. A poorly arranged load can cause discomfort for the animal and create problems during long walks. Experience teaches these lessons. Young handlers learn through mistakes. Older handlers learn through years of observation. The man checks every rope twice. Everything appears secure. Soon he starts walking. The donkeys follow. Dust rises beneath their hooves. The village slowly fades behind them. Ahead lies a road stretching through fields and open land. The Nile remains nearby. Its waters support life across the region. Without the river, these settlements could not survive. Fields of grain spread across fertile ground enriched by ancient floods. Farmers work carefully to make the most of each growing season. The donkey handler passes many of them during his travels. Some wave. Others continue working. Many have known him for years. In a world where people spend most of their lives close to home, familiar faces become part of daily existence. As the sun climbs higher, the landscape changes. The coolness of dawn begins disappearing. Warmth settles across the earth. The road grows brighter. Shadows shorten. The donkeys continue at a steady pace. They are not fast animals. They are not graceful animals. But they are dependable. Dependability matters more than speed. The handler walks beside them, listening to the quiet rhythm of hooves against packed soil. The sound becomes almost hypnotic. Step after step. Hour after hour. A life measured by movement. Along the road they pass travelers heading toward nearby settlements. Merchants. Farm workers. Craftsmen carrying tools. A scribe riding atop a donkey while protecting a bundle of writing materials. Each traveler has somewhere to be. Each follows routines shaped by work, family, and survival. The Egyptian world often appears grand when viewed from a distance. Temples rise above cities. Monuments dominate the landscape. Pharaohs command attention across centuries. Yet most lives unfold in much smaller ways. A loaf of bread. A day's labor. A short conversation. A tired evening meal. A quiet night's sleep. The donkey handler belongs to this ordinary world. And it is this ordinary world that fills most of human history. The morning continues. The sun rises higher. Heat gathers slowly across the fields. Soon the comfortable hours of dawn are gone. The true Egyptian day begins. Sweat forms on foreheads. Workers move more slowly. Shade becomes precious. The donkey handler adjusts his pace. He watches the animals carefully. Good handlers understand that exhaustion can create problems long before obvious signs appear. An overheated animal may struggle later in the day. A thirsty animal loses strength. Experience teaches attention. Attention preserves both worker and beast. Near midday, they arrive at a storage area where supplies must be delivered. Laborers unload grain. Others carry baskets toward nearby buildings. The work proceeds without hurry. No one rushes. The heat discourages unnecessary movement. Even conversations become quieter beneath the blazing sun. The handler finally sits beneath a patch of shade. For a few moments he simply rests. The relief feels wonderful. A clay jar of water passes between workers. Small meals appear. Bread. Onions. Perhaps a few dates. Simple food. Familiar food. Food that has sustained countless generations. Nearby, the donkeys rest as well. Their ears flick occasionally. They stand patiently in the shade. The entire scene settles into a peaceful stillness. The hottest hours of the day often create this effect. Activity slows. Movement becomes deliberate. The world seems to pause beneath the weight of the sun. And there, in that quiet pause, surrounded by dust, distant river water, and the soft sounds of working animals, the donkey handler closes his eyes for a moment. Not fully asleep. Not fully awake. Simply resting. Simply existing within another ordinary day beside the Nile. And as afternoon slowly approaches, more roads, more deliveries, and more quiet miles await him beneath the endless Egyptian sky. The shade grows smaller as the afternoon sun continues its slow climb across the sky. For a little while, the donkey handler remains seated against the warm wall of the storage yard. Around him, other workers rest quietly. The sounds of labor have softened. Even the birds seem less active during the hottest part of the day. Far away, beyond the fields and villages, the desert waits beneath the bright sun. Its pale sands shimmer in the distance. The air above the ground appears to ripple gently. The donkey handler opens his eyes again. His short rest is finished. There is more work to do before evening. Ancient Egypt is a land connected by movement. Grain must travel from fields to storehouses. Stone must travel from quarries to workshops. Clay jars must travel to markets. Fish caught along the Nile must reach homes before the day's heat spoils them. Every journey depends upon people. And many journeys depend upon donkeys. The handler rises slowly and stretches his back. The muscles across his shoulders feel tight. Years of walking have shaped his body. His feet have traveled countless dusty roads. The skin on his hands has become rough from ropes and work. Nearby, the donkeys stir as he approaches. One flicks its tail. Another lifts its head from the ground. The animals understand the routine almost as well as the man himself. Soon the afternoon journey begins. The loads are lighter now. Some supplies have already been delivered. New cargo waits for transport elsewhere. The handler checks each rope carefully. A loose bundle can become a problem many miles down the road. Everything appears secure. He nods quietly to himself. Then they begin walking once more. The road stretches ahead beneath the endless blue sky. A warm breeze drifts across the fields. In the distance, farmers continue tending crops along narrow irrigation channels fed by Nile water. Their work never truly ends. There is always something to plant, repair, harvest, carry, or store. The donkey handler knows many of these workers. Sometimes he delivers tools. sometimes sacks of grain, sometimes clay jars filled with water. Many days follow familiar patterns. Yet no 2 days are exactly the same. A broken rope, a stubborn animal, an unexpected request from a merchant, a delayed delivery. Small changes shape the rhythm of ordinary life. As the afternoon passes, they reach a village not much larger than the one where the handler lives. Mud brick homes stand close together. Narrow paths wind between buildings. Children play in patches of shade. Women carry baskets balanced carefully upon their heads. A group of men repairs part of a wall damaged by weather and time. The donkeys move slowly through the settlement. People step aside to let them pass. The handler exchanges greetings with familiar faces. Nothing dramatic happens. No important announcements. No great events. Only the quiet flow of daily life. And perhaps that is what makes the scene feel so peaceful. Most people throughout history lived days much like these. Days filled not with adventure, but with routine. Days shaped by work, family, weather, and survival. The handler stops beside a workshop. Inside, potters shape wet clay with practiced hands. Rows of unfinished vessels stand drying nearby. The smell of earth hangs in the air. Clay jars are among the most useful objects in Egyptian life. They store water. They store grain. They store oil. They travel between villages and farms. The workshop depends upon transportation. Transportation depends upon animals. And so the donkey handler unloads another portion of his cargo. The potters thank him. The jars are carried carefully inside. For a few moments he watches the craftsmen work. Their hands move with calm confidence. They have repeated the same motions thousands of times. The turning of clay. The smoothing of surfaces. The shaping of handles. A lifetime can pass through repetition. Yet repetition also creates mastery. The handler understands this. His own skills were learned through countless ordinary days. No teacher delivered long lessons. The road itself became his teacher. The animals became his teachers. Experience became his teacher. As afternoon slowly drifts onward, he resumes his journey. The heat remains heavy. Sweat darkens the linen fabric across his shoulders. Dust clings to his sandals. The donkeys continue patiently. Step after step. The rhythm returns. Hooves pressing into earth. Ropes creaking softly. Warm wind crossing open land. Above them, the sun begins its gradual descent. The change is subtle at first. The light softens slightly. Shadows grow longer. The harsh brightness of midday slowly begins to fade. Many workers notice this change immediately. The afternoon feels easier than the hours before. Energy slowly returns. Conversation becomes more common. Movement becomes less difficult. The donkey handler passes a group of fishermen preparing small boats near the riverbank. Their nets lie spread across the ground. Some repair damaged sections. Others sort equipment. The Nile flows beside them with quiet confidence. Its waters reflect sunlight like polished metal. For thousands of years, this river has shaped every aspect of Egyptian life. The handler often pauses when traveling near the water. There is something calming about its steady presence. The river never seems hurried. It moves at its own pace. Morning after morning. Season after season. Year after year. Today he stops for only a moment. The donkeys drink. The handler splashes cool water across his face. The relief feels wonderful. Drops of water slide down dusty skin. For a brief time, the heat seems less intense. Nearby, reeds sway gently along the shore. Small birds dart among them. The scene feels peaceful enough to remain forever unchanged. Yet the day continues moving forward. Everything moves forward. The river. The animals. The workers. The sun. Time itself. The handler resumes walking. The afternoon slowly approaches evening. Along the road he encounters a merchant caravan heading in the opposite direction. Several donkeys carry woven baskets. Others carry goods wrapped carefully in cloth. The merchants exchange greetings. News travels this way. Not through written messages for most people, but through conversations on roads and riverbanks. A few words about crop conditions. A few words about local markets. A few words about weather. Simple information carried from village to village. The caravan continues onward. Soon it disappears into the distance. The handler and his animals continue alone. As the hours pass, the sky begins changing color. Gold replaces white. Soft orange appears along the horizon. The day is finally beginning to cool. The handler feels his body relaxing slightly. Even the donkeys seem more comfortable. Long shadows stretch across fields and roads. Farmers gather tools. Children return home. Cooking fires begin appearing throughout villages. The smell of evening meals drifts through the air. Bread baking. Vegetables cooking. Simple foods prepared after long hours of labor. For many workers, evening is the most welcome part of the day. The hardest work is finished. The heat is fading. Families gather together. The donkey handler understands this feeling well. He has been walking since dawn. His feet ache. His shoulders feel heavy. Yet there is comfort in knowing home is not far away. The final deliveries are completed as sunset approaches. The remaining cargo is unloaded. The ropes are loosened. The animals carry much less weight now. A feeling of completion settles over the journey. Not satisfaction exactly. Something quieter. Something gentler. The feeling of another ordinary day successfully finished. The handler begins the journey home. The sky glows with warm evening colors. The Nile reflects shades of gold and copper. Birds cross overhead on their way to resting places. The world feels softer now. Less demanding. Less intense. The road that seemed endless beneath the afternoon sun now feels familiar and comforting. Step by step, village lights begin appearing ahead. Small oil lamps glow inside homes. Their light flickers through doorways and windows. Smoke rises lazily into the evening sky. The donkey handler can almost smell supper waiting. The donkeys seem to recognize the route as well. They walk confidently. No guidance is needed. Home is near. Soon the village appears fully before them. Mud brick walls glow softly beneath fading sunlight. Voices drip through the evening air. Children laugh somewhere nearby. A dog barks once and then falls silent. The handler guides the animals back toward their enclosure. The day's work is finished. At least for now. The donkeys are unloaded completely. Fresh water is provided. Feed is distributed. The animals settle into the familiar comfort of evening. The handler runs his hand along the neck of one tired donkey. The animal stands quietly. Both have spent the day working beneath the same sun. Both have traveled the same roads. Both have earned their rest. The sky continues darkening. Stars begin appearing one by one above ancient Egypt. The village grows quieter. Cooking fires burn low. Families gather for evening meals. And as darkness gently settles across the Nile Valley, the donkey handler finally turns toward home, carrying with him the dust, fatigue, and simple peace of another completed day. The last colors of sunset linger for a little while above the western horizon. They fade slowly, almost reluctantly, leaving behind a deepening blue sky scattered with the first bright stars of the evening. The donkey handler walks through the narrow village path toward his home. Around him, the pace of life has changed. The hard labor of daylight is ending. The village is settling into its nighttime rhythm. Warm air drifts between the mud brick houses. Small lamps flicker behind open doorways. Soft voices flow through the darkness. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs before being called inside by a parent. The sounds are gentle, comforting, familiar. After a day spent walking dusty roads beneath the Egyptian sun, these simple evening sounds feel like a welcome reward. The handler reaches his home. The walls are built from sun-dried mud bricks made from Nile mud mixed with straw. The structure is modest, like most homes in the village. Inside, the air is slightly cooler than outside. Clay jars stand near one wall. Baskets hang from wooden pegs. A small oil lamp provides a warm glow that dances softly across the room. Family members sit together preparing the evening meal. The smell reaches him immediately. Fresh bread. Cooked vegetables. Perhaps lentils simmered slowly in a clay pot. Simple foods. Foods that generations of Egyptians have eaten before him. He lowers himself onto a reed mat. His legs feel heavy. The muscles in his feet still remember every mile of the day's journey. For a few moments he says very little. There is no need. The quiet comfort of returning home speaks for itself. The meal begins. Pieces of bread are shared. Water is poured carefully from clay jars. Conversation moves slowly around the room. No one rushes. The hardest part of the day has passed. Outside, darkness spreads across the village. The stars become brighter. Without modern lights, the ancient night sky appears vast beyond imagination. Thousands of stars shine above the Nile Valley. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a pale river of light. Many people in the village occasionally look upward during the evening. The sky feels close in a way that is difficult to describe. Present. Alive. Always watching. The donkey handler often notices certain stars that appear in familiar places throughout the year. He does not study them like a priest or scholar. Yet he recognizes them. Just as he recognizes roads, fields, and river paths. The stars have become part of daily life. After supper, the village remains active for a little while longer. Not everyone immediately goes to sleep. The cooler evening hours offer relief after the heat of the day. Some people sit outside their homes. Others complete small tasks left unfinished. A potter might inspect drying clay vessels. A fisherman might repair part of a net. A farmer might sharpen a tool for tomorrow's work. The donkey handler occasionally spends these hours repairing equipment as well. Tonight he examines several ropes used during the day's journey. One section shows signs of wear. The fibers are becoming thin. Soon it will need replacement. He works carefully beneath the soft lamplight. The task requires patience. A broken rope on the road can create many problems. Prevention is easier than repair. The village slowly grows quieter. One house falls silent. Then another. Then another. Children drift into sleep. Lamps begin disappearing behind closed doors. The donkey handler finishes his work and steps outside. The air feels pleasant now. A gentle breeze moves across the settlement. In the distance, beyond the homes and fields, the Nile reflects moonlight. The river appears almost silver beneath the night sky. He walks a short distance toward the edge of the village. There is no particular destination. No urgent purpose. Only a desire to enjoy a few moments of cool evening air before sleep. Many ancient people understood something modern life often forgets. Quiet has value. Stillness has value. Moments with no task, no responsibility, and no urgency possess their own kind of richness. The donkey handler stands beneath the stars. The village behind him grows increasingly silent. A donkey brays softly from its enclosure. Then even that sound fades. The night deepens. Far away, insects sing among reeds near the riverbank. The breeze carries faint scents of water and earth. Everything feels calm. Peaceful. The kind of peace that arrives only after a long day of honest labor. Eventually he returns home. Inside, family members are already preparing for sleep. The lamp burns lower. Shadows gather in the corners of the room. The handler settles onto his reed mat. The surface is not luxurious. Few people in ancient Egypt enjoy luxury. Yet after walking many miles, even a simple sleeping place feels welcoming. He stretches out carefully. The muscles in his legs gradually begin to relax. Outside, the village continues falling deeper into silence. One by one, the remaining sounds disappear. A final conversation. A closing door. A distant cough. Then quiet. The kind of quiet that seems to blanket the entire Nile Valley. The handler closes his eyes. Sleep approaches quickly. Physical labor often brings deep sleep. The body knows when it needs rest. Tomorrow will bring another day of work. Another sunrise. Another journey. Another series of loads carried along familiar roads. But those concerns belong to the future. For now there is only darkness. Only rest. Only the steady rhythm of breathing. Hours pass. The moon climbs higher. Moonlight washes softly across rooftops and courtyards. Many villagers sleep deeply. Others shift occasionally beneath blankets or woven coverings. Dogs wander silently through narrow pathways. The donkeys rest within their enclosure. Their long day is finished as well. Ancient nights often feel longer than modern ones. Without bright lamps and constant activity, darkness encourages sleep. People rise early because they sleep early. Their lives follow the natural rhythm of sunlight and seasons. The donkey handler drifts through dreams. Perhaps he dreams of roads. Perhaps of fields. Perhaps of nothing at all. Outside, the Nile continues flowing through the darkness. The river never stops. Day and night. Season after season. Year after year. Its waters pass villages, temples, farms, and fishing boats. Generations are born beside it. Generations grow old beside it. Generations disappear beside it. Yet the river remains. Sometime during the deepest part of the night, the air cools further. The village becomes completely still. This is the quietest moment of the entire day. No merchants travel. No builders work. No children play. No farmers tend fields. The world seems suspended between yesterday and tomorrow. The donkey handler sleeps through these peaceful hours. His body repairs itself. His strength slowly returns. The soreness in his muscles begins to fade. This nightly recovery is as important as the labor itself. Without rest, tomorrow's work becomes impossible. Without sleep, every road feels longer. Every load feels heavier. Every step becomes harder. And so the night continues. Above the village, countless stars wheel slowly across the heavens. The moon begins its gradual descent. Far beyond the horizon, another dawn waits patiently. Its arrival remains hours away. For now, ancient Egypt rests beneath a blanket of darkness. The donkey handler sleeps. The donkeys sleep. The farmers sleep. The potters sleep. The fishermen sleep. The bakers sleep. The entire village drifts quietly through the night, surrounded by mud brick walls, desert winds, and the distant whisper of the Nile. And somewhere in that deep stillness, another ordinary day quietly slips into history. Long before the sun appears above the eastern horizon, the first hints of a new day begin to touch the Nile Valley. The stars still shine overhead. Most of the village remains asleep. The air is cooler now than it has been for many hours. A soft breeze drifts across fields resting quietly in darkness. Reeds along the riverbanks sway gently. The donkey handler sleeps deeply upon his reed mat. For a little while longer, the village belongs to the night. Then, slowly, almost unnoticed, the world begins to wake. A bird calls from somewhere beyond the houses. The sound is small. A single note carried through the darkness. Soon another bird answers. The eastern sky lightens by the smallest amount. Black becomes deep blue. Deep blue becomes a softer shade. The stars nearest the horizon begin to fade. The donkey handler stirs. His eyes open. For a moment he remains still, listening. The village has not fully awakened yet. This brief space between night and day feels different from every other hour. The world seems suspended. Quiet. Waiting. Then he rises. The routine begins once more. His feet touch the cool floor. He dresses in familiar linen garments. The fabric is worn from use and repeated washing. It carries traces of dust gathered from many roads and many journeys. Outside, dawn approaches. The sky continues brightening. Small lights appear inside neighboring homes as other workers begin their own mornings. Ancient Egypt wakes early. The cool hours before sunrise are precious. Every worker understands this. Every farmer. Every fisherman. Every builder. Every donkey handler. The heat will arrive soon enough. For now, the morning belongs to them. The handler walks toward the animal enclosure. The donkeys are already awake. Large ears move toward him as he approaches. One animal gives a soft bray. Another shifts its weight and watches quietly. The handler smiles faintly. Years spent working together create a kind of understanding. Not friendship in the way people understand friendship. Something simpler. Something practical. Trust built through routine. He begins preparing feed. The donkeys eat slowly. The sounds are steady and comforting. Nearby, smoke starts rising from the first cooking fires of the day. Bread dough is being prepared. Water is being collected. Families are beginning their daily routines. As dawn spreads across the Nile Valley, color returns to the landscape. The river reflects pale gold. Fields emerge from darkness. Palm trees stand motionless against the brightening sky. Everything feels fresh again. Renewed. Yesterday's dust still exists. Yesterday's fatigue still lingers. Yet morning carries its own quiet promise. The possibility of another day successfully completed. The handler gathers ropes and equipment. Today's work will take him farther from home than usual. A merchant has requested transportation assistance for goods traveling toward a larger market settlement. Such journeys are important. Villages produce many things: grain, vegetables, pottery, textiles, fish. But no village produces everything it needs. Goods must move. Supplies must travel. Trade connects communities across the Nile Valley. And much of that trade depends upon people like the donkey handler. By the time the sun finally rises above the horizon, preparations are complete. Several donkeys stand ready. Bundles of goods are secured carefully. Baskets filled with produce. Clay containers sealed with lids. Rolled textiles wrapped for protection. Every load has been balanced with care. The handler examines each one. Nothing appears loose. Nothing seems likely to shift during travel. Satisfied, he begins the journey. The road stretches northward beside fertile farmland. Morning light spreads gently across the earth. Farmers are already working. Some guide simple plows. Others inspect irrigation channels. The smell of damp soil rises from fields recently watered. Agriculture shapes nearly every aspect of Egyptian life. Without successful harvests, villages struggle. Without transportation, harvests cannot reach those who need them. The handler understands this connection. He may not think about it often. Yet every journey forms part of a larger system stretching across the land. As the morning progresses, more travelers appear on the road. A fisherman carrying baskets. A potter leading a small donkey loaded with jars. Several laborers heading toward a construction site. A merchant traveling alone. The road feels alive. Not crowded. Not noisy. Simply active. People moving through the landscape as they have done for generations. The handler exchanges greetings as he passes. Many faces are familiar. Some are not. The Nile Valley may seem vast, but communities remain closely connected through travel and trade. After several hours, the road begins approaching a larger settlement. Even from a distance, signs of activity become visible. More buildings. More movement. More animals. Thin columns of smoke rising into the sky. This settlement serves as an important gathering place for nearby villages. Goods arrive here from many directions. Some continue onward. Others are exchanged in local markets. The donkey handler enters through a busy roadway lined with mud brick structures. Immediately the atmosphere changes. Voices fill the air. Merchants discuss prices. Workers carry supplies. Children weave through crowds. Animals stand tethered beside buildings. The sounds are not overwhelming. Yet compared to the quiet village roads, the market feels lively. The handler guides his donkeys carefully. Experience teaches caution in crowded places. A frightened animal can create confusion. A loose load can cause delays. Patience remains important. Eventually he reaches the merchant who arranged the transport. The man greets him warmly. The cargo is inspected. Everything has arrived safely. The handler feels a small sense of satisfaction. Reliable work leads to future opportunities. In a world built upon personal relationships, reputation matters greatly. As laborers unload the goods, the handler finds a shaded area nearby. For a little while he simply watches the market. It is one of the few places where many different aspects of Egyptian life gather together. Farmers display produce harvested from nearby fields. Potters arrange finished vessels. Textile makers offer woven cloth. Fishermen bring fresh catches from the river. Everywhere people exchange goods, information, and conversation. The handler notices details others might overlook. Dust drifting through sunlight. The creak of wooden carts. The fluttering wings of birds searching for scraps. The smell of bread baking somewhere nearby. Life reveals itself through small moments. Not only through great events. Not only through famous names. Ordinary moments tell their own stories. The market continues growing busier as the morning advances. Yet beneath the activity lies a familiar rhythm. People know what they have come to do. Buy. Sell. Trade. Work. Then return home. The handler purchases a simple meal from a vendor. Bread. A few dates. Cool water. Nothing elaborate. The food tastes especially satisfying after hours on the road. Nearby, merchants discuss river traffic. Boats have arrived carrying grain from distant settlements. The Nile remains Egypt's greatest highway. Travel by water often proves easier than travel by land. Large cargoes move efficiently along the river. Yet donkeys remain essential. Goods must still travel between docks, villages, workshops, and fields. The river and the roads work together. Neither can fully replace the other. As the handler sits beneath the shade, he watches several boats moving slowly along the Nile. Their sails catch the morning breeze. The sight never grows old. For centuries these vessels have carried people and supplies across the land. Long after today's travelers are forgotten, boats will continue gliding across the river. The thought is strangely comforting. Life continues. Work continues. The Nile continues. By midday, the sun begins asserting itself once again. Shadows shorten. Heat gathers. Workers move more carefully. The busiest hours of the market gradually soften. Some travelers begin preparing for return journeys. The donkey handler knows he will soon do the same. More roads await. More villages. More deliveries. More quiet miles beside the river. For now, however, he remains seated in the shade, listening to the sounds of commerce drifting through the warm air. The donkeys rest nearby. The market hums gently around him. And beyond it all, the ancient Nile continues flowing beneath the bright Egyptian sun, carrying another ordinary day steadily forward through time. The shade feels pleasant during the hottest part of the day. The donkey handler remains seated near the edge of the market while the afternoon heat slowly settles across the settlement. Around him, merchants continue their work, though with less energy than before. Conversations become quieter. Movements become slower. The sun hangs high above the Nile Valley. Its light falls upon rooftops, river water, dusty roads, and distant fields. Nothing escapes its reach. The donkeys stand nearby beneath a simple shelter made from wooden poles and woven reeds. They rest patiently, occasionally flicking their tails at insects drifting through the warm air. The handler watches them for a while. Good animals are valuable. Not because they are rare. Not because they are beautiful. Because they are dependable. Dependability matters greatly in a world where every journey requires effort. A reliable donkey can carry food to a family. Tools to a builder. Grain to a village. Water to a distant field. Entire communities quietly depend upon such simple labor. As the afternoon continues, the market slowly begins to stir again. The worst of the heat is passing. People emerge from shaded corners. Merchants reopen bundles. Laborers prepare for new tasks. The day still has many hours remaining. The donkey handler stands and stretches. His back gives a small ache. His legs feel stiff from sitting. Soon he receives new instructions from a merchant who needs several bundles delivered to another settlement farther north. The destination lies beyond the villages he visits most often. He has traveled there before, though not frequently. The journey will take him through stretches of road less familiar than his usual routes. That thought does not concern him. Ancient roads rarely surprise experienced travelers. Most journeys follow rivers, fields, and settlements connected by long-established paths. The handler begins preparing for departure. New cargo is loaded. Bundles of woven cloth. Small containers of oil. Several baskets sealed with lids. Everything must be balanced carefully. The donkeys stand patiently while the work is completed. Soon the ropes are secured. The loads are checked. The journey begins. The settlement gradually disappears behind him. Once again he finds himself walking beneath the open sky. There is something peaceful about leaving busy places. Markets possess their own energy. Yet the handler often prefers the quiet rhythm of the road. The sounds become simpler. Hooves. Wind. Birds. Occasional voices from passing travelers. The landscape opens before him. The Nile remains visible much of the time, shining softly beneath the afternoon light. Palm trees line portions of the riverbank. Fishing boats drift across calm water. Beyond a fertile strip of farmland, the desert stretches outward toward distant horizons. Ancient Egypt often feels like two worlds resting beside one another. The green world of the Nile. And the dry world beyond it. Life gathers close to the river. Villages cluster near its waters. Fields spread across its floodplain. Roads follow its course. Without the Nile, little would remain here. The donkey handler has known this truth his entire life. Everyone does. The river provides food, transportation, water, connection. Its presence shapes every day. As afternoon slowly moves toward evening, the road becomes quieter. Fewer travelers appear. The market settlement lies behind him now. The next village remains several miles ahead. The handler walks steadily. There is no reason to hurry. The donkeys maintain their familiar pace. A pace that seems slow at first. Yet hour after hour, mile after mile, it carries them exactly where they need to go. The rhythm becomes soothing. Almost dreamlike. Step. 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 The road stretches forward. Dust rises gently beneath hooves. The sun gradually begins descending toward the western horizon. Light softens. Colors deepen. Long shadows return to the landscape. The most comfortable hours of the day are approaching. The handler notices farmers finishing their work. Some gather tools. Others lead animals toward shelters. Children help carry baskets. Families begin preparing for evening. Everywhere life follows patterns repeated countless times before. The cycles rarely change. Morning labor. Midday heat. Evening relief. Nighttime rest. Then dawn returns. The repetition does not feel boring to the people living it. It feels natural. Expected. Reliable. There is comfort in knowing what tomorrow will probably bring. As the handler continues northward, he passes a small riverside shrine. The structure is modest compared to the great temples known throughout Egypt. Yet someone has placed fresh flowers nearby. Someone has swept the area clean. Even simple places receive care. The handler slows briefly as he passes. Then continues onward. The road curves gently beside the Nile. The water glows with golden reflections. Birds skim low across the surface. A fisherman guides his boat toward shore. The scene feels timeless. Perhaps it looked much the same years ago. Perhaps it will look much the same years from now. The handler finds comfort in such thoughts. Many things change. Yet many things remain. The river remains. The seasons remain. The roads remain. Eventually the distant outlines of another settlement appear ahead. Small at first. Then gradually larger. Mud brick walls catch the evening light. Thin streams of smoke rise into the sky. The sight brings quiet relief. The handler has traveled many miles today. Another night's rest is beginning to feel welcome. This village is unfamiliar to some travelers. Not to him. Though he visits only occasionally, he knows several people here. Years of transport work create connections across many communities. A familiar face appears. Then another. Greetings are exchanged. The cargo is delivered. The merchant receiving the goods seems pleased. Everything has arrived safely. The handler feels satisfaction once again. Not pride. Not excitement. Simply the calm feeling that comes from work completed properly. The sun approaches the horizon. Orange light spreads across the landscape. The day is ending. The village settles into its evening routines. Cooking fires appear. Children return home. Animals are fed and secured for the night. The handler arranges a place to stay. Travelers often rely upon hospitality offered by friends, family connections, or local workers. The accommodations are simple. A place to rest. Water to drink. Food to eat. Nothing more is necessary. As darkness begins spreading across the sky, he sits outside for a while. The evening air feels wonderfully cool after the long day. Nearby, people speak softly while preparing meals. The smell of bread drifts through the village. Someone laughs quietly. A dog wanders across the road. The donkeys rest nearby after their journey. Their work, like his own, is finished for the day. The handler watches the sky darken. One star appears. Then another. Soon countless stars shine overhead. Away from busy settlements, the night sky feels enormous. The stars seem almost close enough to touch. Ancient people spend much of their lives beneath this sky. They know its patterns, its seasons, its familiar lights. The handler leans back and gazes upward. The air is calm. The village grows quieter. The Nile reflects moonlight beyond the houses. The day begins slipping gently into memory. Tomorrow will bring new roads, new cargo, new conversations, new miles beneath the Egyptian sun. But none of that matters yet. For now there is only evening. Only cool air. Only the steady comfort of rest earned through honest labor. And beneath the endless stars of ancient Egypt, the donkey handler allows the weight of the day to slowly fade away. The night passes quietly in the unfamiliar village. Above the rooftops, stars drift slowly across the heavens. The moon climbs high, casting pale light over courtyards, pathways, and sleeping animals. Most of the village rests deeply. The donkey handler sleeps as well. His body welcomes the rest. The miles of yesterday linger in his muscles, yet sleep softens their burden. The ache in his shoulders fades little by little. The stiffness in his legs eases. Outside, the Nile continues its silent journey through the darkness. The river never truly sleeps. Even now, small boats drift upon its waters. Fishermen work beneath moonlight. Travelers continue their journeys. The current carries reeds, leaves, and reflections of distant stars. Hours pass. The deepest part of the night settles across the land. The village becomes almost completely silent. Only occasional sounds interrupt the stillness. A dog shifting in its sleep. A faint breeze brushing against walls. The distant call of a night bird. Then quiet returns once more. Eventually, the first signs of dawn begin appearing along the eastern horizon. The stars slowly retreat. Dark blue becomes softer. The air feels fresh and cool. The donkey handler awakens. For a few moments he remains still, listening to the peaceful silence that exists before the day begins. These moments are rare. The world asks nothing of him yet. No cargo waits to be delivered. No roads need to be traveled. No ropes require adjustment. There is only stillness. Then the day begins. He rises from his sleeping place and steps outside. The village remains half asleep. A few workers are already awake. A baker tends an early fire. A woman carries water from a nearby well. Several fishermen prepare nets beside the river. The handler walks toward the donkeys. The animals greet him with familiar sounds. Though far from home, the morning routine remains unchanged. Feed is prepared. Water is checked. Loads are inspected. Ancient life often follows this pattern. Places change. People change. Yet routines remain remarkably similar. The same tasks. The same careful preparations. The same attention to detail. As sunlight begins spreading across the landscape, the handler receives news from a merchant. Another transport opportunity has appeared. A larger trading settlement farther north requires several deliveries. The journey will take multiple days. The route follows the Nile for much of the distance, passing through villages, fields, and stretches of open land. The handler accepts. Work is work. And opportunities cannot always be predicted. Soon fresh cargo is loaded. Bales of woven cloth. Small containers of oil. Bundles of dried goods intended for market exchange. The loads are heavier than usual. Not overwhelming. But enough to remind the donkeys that another long journey lies ahead. The handler checks every rope carefully. Then they depart. The village gradually disappears behind them. Morning sunlight bathes the Nile Valley in gold. The river sparkles beside the road. Birds glide overhead. Palm trees cast long shadows across fertile farmland. The world feels calm and welcoming. The road ahead stretches toward distant horizons. The handler settles into the familiar rhythm of travel. Step after step. Mile after mile. The donkeys walk steadily. Their pace never changes very much. That consistency has become one of their greatest strengths. Some travelers grow impatient. The donkey handler does not. He understands that slow and steady often accomplishes more than haste. As the morning advances, the landscape becomes increasingly varied. Small villages appear beside irrigation channels. Farmhouses stand among fields of grain. Children wave from riverbanks. Farmers pause briefly from their work to watch travelers pass. The handler observes everything quietly. Years spent on the road have taught him to notice details. The condition of crops. The level of river water. The mood of animals. The signs of approaching weather. Information often reveals itself through observation. A traveler who pays attention rarely feels surprised. By late morning, the road approaches an area where fertile farmland begins giving way to drier ground. The transition is gradual. Green fields become less frequent. The desert edge grows closer. The golden brown earth stretches farther into the distance. The contrast fascinates the handler. On one side lies life nourished by river water. On the other side lies the vast desert. Both worlds exist side by side. Both shape ancient Egypt. Warm wind drifts from the desert. It carries fine dust across the road. The handler wraps part of his linen garment across his face for protection. The donkeys continue walking. They have experienced such conditions many times before. The journey continues. As midday approaches, the heat intensifies. The sun shines relentlessly from above. Shadows shrink. The road seems brighter than ever. Travel becomes more difficult. Every traveler understands this challenge. Ancient roads offer little protection from the midday sun. Shade becomes precious. Water becomes precious. Energy becomes precious. The handler eventually finds a cluster of trees near the riverbank. There he pauses. The donkeys rest. Water is shared. Food is eaten. Simple bread. A few dried dates. Nothing elaborate. Yet after hours of travel, the meal feels satisfying. Nearby, the Nile flows quietly past. The sight brings comfort. The river always seems calm, regardless of the concerns of those living beside it. Boats move slowly across the water. Some carry cargo. Others carry passengers. One vessel appears heavily loaded with grain. Another transports pottery. The handler watches them for a while. Transport by water remains one of Egypt's greatest advantages. The Nile connects distant communities in ways that roads alone never could. Yet roads remain necessary. Every cargo eventually leaves the river. Every market requires local transport. Every village depends upon connections extending beyond the water's edge. The handler feels a quiet sense of pride in his work. Not because anyone praises it. Not because it brings fame. Because it matters. The goods he carries reach people who need them. The roads he travels connect communities. His labor forms one small part of a much larger world. The thought feels satisfying. Eventually the journey resumes. The afternoon unfolds slowly. The road curves beside the Nile. Occasionally it rises above the riverbank, offering wide views across the valley. The handler pauses once at the top of a gentle rise. From there he can see fields stretching toward the horizon. Villages appear like clusters of earth-colored shapes. Boats move along the river far below. Palm groves dot the landscape. The scene is beautiful in its simplicity. No grand monuments dominate the view. No famous landmarks. Only the everyday Egypt known by ordinary people. The Egypt of workers. Farmers. Boatmen. Potters. Families. The Egypt that rarely appears in official records. Yet this ordinary world supports everything else. Without it, nothing larger could exist. As afternoon slowly drifts toward evening, the air begins cooling once more. The harsh edge of the day softens. The handler feels renewed energy. The donkeys seem more comfortable. Long shadows return across the land. Birds become active again. The road grows busier as travelers take advantage of the cooler temperatures. A merchant caravan passes heading south. Several donkeys carry baskets filled with produce. The travelers exchange greetings. News is shared briefly. A market farther north has been particularly active. River traffic remains steady. Harvest conditions appear favorable. Simple information. Yet valuable information. Roads carry news as surely as they carry goods. Eventually the sun begins descending toward the western horizon. Golden light spreads across the valley. The Nile glows like polished metal. The day approaches its end. The handler knows another village lies ahead. A place where travelers often spend the night. Its lights are not yet visible. But he knows they will appear soon. The road bends gently. The evening breeze strengthens. The donkeys continue their patient walk. And beneath the warm colors of the setting Egyptian sun, the long journey northward carries on, one steady step at a time. The evening light grows softer with each passing moment. The donkey handler continues along the road while the sun slowly settles toward the western horizon. The long shadows of palm trees stretch across the earth. Warm gold covers the fields beside the Nile. The day has been long. Many miles now lie behind him. Yet there is something comforting about these final hours before darkness. The heat has faded. The wind feels gentle. The road seems quieter. Ahead, the outline of another settlement gradually appears. At first it is little more than a collection of shapes against the fading light. Then individual buildings become visible. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The distant sounds of evening drift across the fields. The handler feels a quiet sense of relief. A place to rest awaits. The donkeys seem to sense it as well. Their pace remains steady, but there is a certain familiarity in the way they move towards shelter after a long day. As he approaches the village, people are already settling into their nighttime routines. Women prepare meals. Children finish small chores before darkness arrives. Farmers return from the fields carrying tools across their shoulders. The smell of baking bread drifts through the air. It is a smell found almost everywhere along the Nile. A smell that signals comfort. A smell that signals home. The handler enters the village and exchanges greetings with several residents. Many communities along these trade routes regularly welcome travelers. Roads connect lives together. Familiar faces often appear again and again over the years. A person may leave one village and arrive at another only to find someone they met many seasons earlier. Ancient Egypt can feel both vast and surprisingly small at the same time. The handler secures a place for the donkeys to spend the night. Fresh water is provided. Feed is distributed. The animals settle down after their journey. The handler takes a moment to inspect each one. A small scrape here. A little dust there. Nothing serious. Good. Healthy animals are essential for long-distance travel. Only after the donkeys are comfortable does he begin thinking about his own evening. He receives a simple meal from a local family accustomed to hosting travelers. The food is modest. Fresh bread. A bowl of lentils. Several dates. Cool water stored in clay jars. After a full day on the road, it feels more satisfying than any feast. The family speaks quietly while they eat. Conversation drifts from crops to river conditions to local news. Nothing dramatic. Nothing urgent. Just ordinary life unfolding one evening at a time. The handler listens more than he speaks. Years spent traveling have taught him patience. People reveal much when they speak freely. He hears about a successful harvest in a nearby village. A damaged irrigation channel that required repairs. A merchant who recently arrived with unusual goods from farther south. The information settles quietly into his memory. Useful knowledge often travels by conversation rather than written records. As darkness deepens, the sky fills with stars. The village grows quieter. Children fall asleep. Doors close. Cooking fires burn lower. The handler steps outside after the meal. The air feels wonderfully cool. Above him stretches the vast Egyptian sky. Thousands upon thousands of stars shine overhead. Some appear bright and steady. Others seem faint and distant. Their light has traveled unimaginable distances before reaching the earth. Of course, the donkey handler does not think about such things. Yet he feels the beauty of the sky all the same. Many people throughout history have found comfort in looking upward at night. The stars remain when other things change. They return night after night, season after season, year after year. The handler sits quietly for a while. The Nile lies nearby, hidden mostly by darkness. Yet he can hear it. A soft movement of water. A faint whisper carried by the breeze. The sound blends with the night itself. Gradually fatigue begins settling over him. The miles of the journey return to his muscles. His shoulders feel heavy. His feet ache pleasantly. The kind of ache that follows honest work. Soon he returns to his sleeping place. A woven mat awaits. Simple. Practical. Comfortable enough. He lies down and closes his eyes. Outside, the village continues drifting toward silence. The stars move slowly overhead. The Nile flows steadily through the darkness. Another day comes to an end. Sleep arrives quickly. And once again the ancient world slips into quiet stillness. Hours pass. The moon crosses the sky. The night deepens. Then begins to fade. Before long, dawn approaches once more. The cycle repeats. The handler awakens before sunrise. The air feels cool. A faint gray light touches the horizon. Nearby, the donkeys stir from sleep. The familiar routine begins again. Feed. Water. Equipment. Preparation. Everything follows a rhythm shaped by years of practice. Soon the journey continues. Today's road leads toward a larger river town than any he has visited during this trip. The settlement serves as an important center for trade. Boats arrive regularly. Merchants gather from many directions. Goods move constantly between river and road. As the morning unfolds, traffic along the route gradually increases. More travelers appear. More animals. More cargo. The handler passes groups of laborers carrying tools. Farmers leading loaded donkeys. Merchants discussing business while they walk. The road feels alive with movement. Every person has a destination. Every load has a purpose. Every journey forms part of a larger network stretching across the Nile Valley. By late morning, the river town comes into view. Even from a distance it appears larger than the villages left behind. Numerous buildings stand near the water. Docks extend into the Nile. Boats move back and forth carrying goods and passengers. The handler slows slightly as he approaches. Large settlements require extra attention. Crowded roads create challenges. Animals must be guided carefully. Loads must remain secure. Patience becomes even more important. As he enters the town, a different atmosphere surrounds him. The sounds are richer. Voices blend together. Workers shout instructions. Boat crews unload cargo. Merchants negotiate prices. The air carries many scents. Fresh bread. River water. Clay. Wood. Cooking food. Animals. Life feels concentrated here. Focused. Busy. Yet not rushed. Even in larger towns, people move with the measured pace of the ancient world. The handler guides his donkeys toward the riverside district. There he witnesses one of the most fascinating sights in Egypt. Cargo arriving directly from boats. Large sacks of grain. Bundles of papyrus. Jars of oil. Baskets of produce. Everything carefully unloaded and sorted. Laborers work steadily beneath the warm sun. The handler watches for a moment. Every item must eventually continue its journey. Some will travel to nearby markets. Others will move to distant villages. Many will require transportation by donkey. The river may carry goods great distances. But the final miles often belong to people like him. He feels connected to the scene. A small part of something larger. A single thread within a vast web of movement and labor. The town continues buzzing around him. Boats arrive. Boats depart. Merchants conduct business. Workers carry supplies. Children weave through narrow streets. Life flows as steadily as the Nile itself. And beneath the bright Egyptian sky, the donkey handler prepares for another day among the roads, river ports, and ordinary people whose quiet labor keeps the ancient world moving forward. Morning sunlight spreads across the river town. The golden light touches the docks first. It glides across moored boats, stacked cargo, wooden walkways, and rows of clay jars waiting to be moved. The Nile reflects the brightness in countless shimmering patterns. The donkey handler stands quietly beside his animals near the edge of the port. Around him, the town is fully awake. Workers move steadily between warehouses. Merchants inspect deliveries. Boat crews secure ropes and unload cargo. The sounds of labor drift through the air like a familiar song. Nothing here feels hurried. There is much work to do, but the rhythm remains steady. Measured. Predictable. The handler has visited places like this many times during his life. Each river town has its own character. Some are larger. Some are quieter. Some specialize in certain goods. Yet all of them depend upon the same thing. Movement. Everything must move. Without movement, grain remains in fields. Without movement, pottery remains in workshops. Without movement, markets become empty. The donkey handler watches several laborers carrying sacks from a recently arrived boat. The vessel sits low in the water, evidence of the heavy cargo it carried. Nearby, another boat prepares to depart. Its sail hangs loosely for now, waiting for favorable wind. The river connects countless communities. A shipment loaded far to the south may eventually arrive hundreds of miles away. Many hands participate along the way. Farmers, boatmen, merchants, laborers, donkey handlers. The work belongs to everyone. The handler receives instructions from a merchant overseeing several deliveries. Additional cargo must be transported from the docks to storage buildings located deeper within the town. The distance is not great. Yet the loads are heavy. The donkeys are prepared. Ropes are adjusted. Bundles are secured. Soon another day's work begins. The handler guides his animals through narrow streets lined with mud brick buildings. The town feels different from the villages he usually visits. More people. More activity. More voices. Yet familiar routines remain visible everywhere. Women sweep doorways. Children carry water. Craftsmen open workshops. Bakers prepare fresh bread. Life changes very little from place to place. Only the scale becomes larger. As the handler walks, he passes a row of workshops. Potters shape clay vessels. Carpenters smooth wooden boards. Weavers work carefully beside looms. Every craft requires materials. Every material requires transportation. The connection between labor and movement appears everywhere. Soon he reaches one of the storage buildings. Laborers unload the cargo. The work proceeds methodically. One bundle after another. Nothing dramatic. Nothing complicated. Simply work performed by people who understand their responsibilities. The handler waits in the shade while the unloading continues. From his position, he can observe much of the surrounding activity. A group of scribes sits beneath a covered area nearby. Their work differs greatly from his own. Instead of carrying loads, they carry information. Instead of guiding animals, they guide records. Papyrus sheets rest before them. Ink and brushes lie nearby. Merchants approach occasionally to discuss shipments. The scribes record quantities and transactions. The handler cannot read. Most people cannot. Yet he respects the scribes. Their work helps organize the complex movement of goods through towns like this. Ancient Egypt depends upon many different kinds of labor. Some labor uses hands. Some labor uses minds. All of it matters. As the morning continues, the handler receives another assignment. Several jars must be transported from a warehouse to a merchant's compound near the edge of town. The task seems simple. Most tasks do. Yet simple tasks performed consistently keep entire communities functioning. The donkeys are loaded once more. The handler sets off. The streets wind between buildings and courtyards. Occasionally he catches glimpses of daily life unfolding behind open doorways. A woman grinding grain. Children helping prepare food. An elderly man resting beneath shade. Small moments. Ordinary moments. The kind that fill most human lives. The merchant's compound appears ahead. Its walls are larger than those of most homes. Several workers wait near the entrance. The cargo is unloaded carefully. The jars must not be damaged. Their contents are valuable. When the work is finished, the handler receives water and a brief opportunity to rest. He sits beneath a palm tree. The shade feels wonderful. Nearby, leaves rustle softly in the breeze. The sounds of the town become distant. For a few moments he enjoys the simple pleasure of sitting quietly. No road. No load. No responsibility. Just stillness. Such moments rarely last long. Eventually the day continues. The sun climbs higher. The heat increases. The town grows brighter. The handler resumes his work. Back and forth. Warehouse to dock. Dock to market. Market to storage yard. Again and again. The routine becomes almost meditative. Step. 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 The donkeys know the paths. The handler knows the paths. The work flows naturally. By midday, much of the town slows slightly beneath the growing heat. Even the busiest places feel the weight of the Egyptian sun. Workers seek shade. Conversations become quieter. Movement becomes more deliberate. The handler joins several laborers resting near the river. The Nile glitters beside them. Its waters seem cool and inviting. A light breeze rises from the surface. The relief feels immediate. Nearby, boats drift gently at their moorings. Their ropes creak softly. Water laps against wooden hulls. The sounds create a peaceful rhythm. One laborer dozes briefly. Another stares across the river. No one speaks much. The heat encourages silence. The handler watches the current move steadily northward. The sight reminds him of all the journeys taking place along the Nile at this very moment. Boats carrying grain. Boats carrying stone. Boats carrying travelers. Donkeys walking roads beside the river. People moving in every direction. each following routines shaped by work and necessity. The thought feels comforting. He is not alone in his labor. Thousands of others spend their days much the same way. Working, walking, carrying, building, preparing for tomorrow. Eventually the hottest hours begin passing. The sun remains bright, but its harshest edge softens slightly. The town awakens once more. Work resumes. Voices return. Cargo continues moving. The handler rises and prepares for the afternoon. There is still much to do before evening. Yet he does not mind. The rhythm of the day feels familiar. Comfortable. Predictable. The donkeys stand waiting nearby. Patient as always. Together they return to the streets. Together they return to the docks. Together they return to the endless movement that keeps the ancient world connected. Above them, the Egyptian sky stretches wide and cloudless. Beside them, the Nile continues its eternal journey. And all around them, ordinary people quietly perform the countless tasks that allow life to continue, one day after another, beneath the warm sun of ancient Egypt. The afternoon settles gently over the river town. The brightest hours of the day have begun to pass, though warmth still rises from the streets and walls. Sunlight reflects from mud brick buildings and spreads across the dusty roads that wind between warehouses, workshops, and homes. The donkey handler continues his work. The donkeys move steadily beside him. Together they travel familiar routes between storage yards and loading areas near the river. The work requires attention but very little conversation. Most people involved already understand what needs to be done. One shipment arrives. Another leaves. One building fills. Another empties. The movement never completely stops. The handler guides his animals toward a section of the town where large warehouses stand beside one another. These buildings are among the busiest places in the settlement. From outside they appear simple. Tall mud brick walls. Heavy wooden doors. Small openings for light and air. Yet inside lies a world of careful organization. Grain stacked in large quantities. Rows of clay jars. Bundles of textiles. Baskets of dried goods. Everything arranged according to purpose. Everything waiting for its next journey. The handler pauses while laborers prepare another load. He stands quietly in the shade of a warehouse wall. Nearby, workers carry sacks upon their shoulders. Their movements are slow but practiced. No energy is wasted. No motion is unnecessary. Years of labor teach efficiency. The same is true for the donkey handler. Long ago he learned that steady effort accomplishes more than rushing. The warehouse supervisor eventually approaches. Several bundles must be transported to a riverside storage area used by boat crews. The assignment is straightforward. The handler nods. The donkeys are loaded. The journey begins once again. As they move through the town, the afternoon light slowly changes. The shadows grow longer. The harsh brightness softens. The streets feel more comfortable than they did a few hours earlier. Children appear outside once again. Merchants continue business. Craftsmen return to tasks interrupted by the heat. Life flows onward. At one point the handler passes near a temple supply yard. The temple itself rises above nearby buildings, its stone walls glowing beneath the sunlight. Large temples require enormous amounts of support. Food, oil, textiles, building materials, tools. The people serving within depend upon countless workers beyond the temple walls. Farmers harvest grain. Potters create vessels. Boatmen move cargo. Donkey handlers transport supplies. Even sacred places rely upon ordinary labor. The handler watches several workers unloading baskets near the temple grounds. The scene appears much like any other delivery. People lifting. People carrying. People organizing. The work of maintaining society rarely changes, regardless of destination. Soon the handler continues toward the riverside. The smell of water grows stronger. A gentle breeze drifts across the docks. The Nile glimmers beneath the lowering sun. Boats continue arriving and departing. Some vessels have traveled far. Others only short distances. All contribute to the endless exchange of goods along the river. The cargo is unloaded successfully. The handler receives instructions for tomorrow's work. Another shipment will require transportation after sunrise. The routine continues. Always another load. Always another journey. Always another day waiting beyond the horizon. By now the afternoon is slipping toward evening. The light takes on deeper shades of gold. The town begins preparing for night. Workers finish tasks. Merchants secure goods. Boat crews inspect ropes and sails. The pace gradually slows. The handler feels his own fatigue returning. The miles traveled during recent days have accumulated. His shoulders feel heavy. His legs ache. Yet there is comfort in that tiredness. It is familiar. Expected. The natural result of honest work. As the sun approaches the horizon, he finds a place near the riverbank and sits for a while. The donkeys rest nearby. The breeze coming from the Nile feels cool against his skin. The water reflects the colors of sunset. Gold. Amber. Soft orange. The entire river seems to glow. For a few moments, the town behind him fades into the background. Voices become distant. The sounds of labor disappear. There is only the river. Only the evening. Only the steady passage of time. The handler watches several fishing boats returning home. Their silhouettes move slowly across the glowing water. Families wait along the shore. Children wave. The fishermen guide their boats toward familiar docks. The scene repeats itself every evening. Yet it never loses its quiet beauty. Nearby, birds fly low above the river. Some settle among reeds. Others disappear toward nesting places hidden from view. The day is ending. The world knows it. The river knows it. The birds know it. The workers know it. The handler knows it. Eventually he rises and leads the donkeys toward their shelter for the night. The animals are tired as well. Fresh water is provided. Feed is distributed. The handler checks each one carefully. Everything appears well. The donkeys settle into their evening rest. Only then does he turn his attention toward himself. The streets are calmer now. Cooking fires burn throughout the town. The smell of food drifts through the air. Bread baking. Vegetables cooking. Simple meals prepared after long hours of labor. The handler follows the scent almost unconsciously. Like countless workers before him, he is hungry. He finds a small courtyard where travelers often gather during the evening. Several laborers sit together sharing a meal. A boatman. A porter. A craftsman from another town. The handler joins them. Conversation remains quiet. No grand stories. No dramatic events. Just small observations from ordinary lives. Someone mentions river conditions farther south. Someone else talks about a successful harvest. Another worker complains gently about sore feet after a long journey. The handler smiles. That complaint feels familiar. The meal is simple but satisfying. Bread. Lentils. A few vegetables. Cool water. Nothing more is needed. As darkness deepens, lamps begin appearing throughout the town. Small points of warm light flicker behind windows and doorways. The streets become quieter. One by one, people return home. The day's responsibilities finally come to an end. The handler walks slowly toward his sleeping place. The sky above is now filled with stars. Far more stars than anyone can count. Their light shines across the Nile, across the town, across distant villages and fields. The same stars that watched yesterday. The same stars that will watch tomorrow. He pauses briefly beside the river. The water reflects moonlight now. Silver replaces gold. The world feels calm. Almost dreamlike. The noise of the day has vanished. Only occasional sounds remain. A distant voice. The soft movement of water. The creak of a moored boat. The whisper of wind. Nothing more. The handler stands quietly for a moment longer. Then he turns away and heads toward sleep. Tomorrow will bring new cargo. New roads. New faces. New miles beside the Nile. But those things belong to another day. Tonight belongs to rest. Tonight belongs to silence. Tonight belongs to the cool air drifting across the river and the peaceful darkness settling over the ancient town. And beneath the endless stars of Egypt, the donkey handler closes his eyes once more while the Nile continues flowing quietly through the night. The night passes gently beside the Nile. Moonlight drifts across the quiet river town. Boats rest against their moorings. Warehouse doors remain closed. Streets that bustled with activity during the day now belong to silence and shadow. The donkey handler sleeps deeply. His body has grown accustomed to the rhythm of travel. Work. Food. Rest. Then work once more. Outside, the stars continue their slow journey across the sky. Hours pass unnoticed. The air cools. The town grows even quieter. Then, somewhere beyond the rooftops, the first faint signs of dawn begin to appear. The eastern horizon lightens little by little. Darkness slowly retreats. The river reflects pale silver light. Another day is beginning. The donkey handler awakens before sunrise. For a few moments he lies still, listening to the sounds of the waking world. A distant bird calls. A boat rope creaks softly against wood. The breeze carries the faint scent of water and damp earth. Everything feels calm. Fresh. Renewed. He rises and steps outside. The streets remain mostly empty. Only a handful of workers are awake. Bakers prepare their ovens. Fishermen organize nets. Laborers gather tools. The familiar rhythm of Egyptian life begins once again. The handler walks toward the donkey's shelter. The animals greet him quietly. Their large ears turn toward him. One nudges gently at a feed basket. The handler smiles faintly. Morning routines rarely change. Feed is distributed. Water is checked. Ropes are inspected. The tasks are simple. Yet their repetition provides comfort. Predictability has its own kind of peace. As dawn spreads across the town, news begins moving among the workers. The harvest season has entered one of its busiest periods. Fields across the Nile Valley are producing large quantities of grain. Storage yards require constant deliveries. River docks are crowded with shipments. Roads are becoming increasingly busy. For donkey handlers, this means more work than almost any other time of year. The handler is not surprised. Harvest always changes the rhythm of life. Months of labor in the fields finally begin bearing fruit. The grain that farmers carefully planted, watered, protected, and harvested must now be moved. Every sack matters. Every shipment matters. The work ahead will be demanding. Soon instructions arrive. Several loads must be transported from nearby farming areas to storage facilities outside the town. The handler prepares immediately. The donkeys are loaded. The morning sun rises above the horizon. Golden light spreads across the Nile Valley. And another journey begins. The road leading away from town feels different today. Busier. More crowded. Farmers move in both directions. Some carry tools. Others lead animals. Several donkey caravans loaded with grain travel towards storage centers. The harvest touches everyone. The handler settles into the familiar pace of walking. The donkeys move steadily. Dust rises beneath their hooves. The morning remains pleasant for now. The worst heat has not yet arrived. Ahead, fields stretch across the landscape. Many are filled with activity. Workers harvest grain beneath the growing sunlight. Others gather bundles into neat stacks. Children help carry smaller loads. Entire families participate. The harvest season transforms the countryside. Every available hand contributes. The handler passes several groups of workers. Some pause briefly to rest. Others continue laboring. Sweat already glistens on foreheads despite the early hour. The work is difficult. Yet there is satisfaction in seeing full fields and successful crops. A good harvest means food, security, stability, hope for the coming months. Eventually the handler reaches one of the collection areas. The scene is busy but organized. Large quantities of grain wait beneath temporary shelters. Workers load sacks onto animals and carts. Supervisors oversee the movement of supplies. The air smells of straw, dust, and fresh grain. The handler joins the activity. His donkeys are unloaded. New cargo is prepared. Heavy sacks are secured carefully. Balance is essential. A poorly loaded animal tires quickly. An experienced handler understands this. The work proceeds steadily. One sack. Then another. Then another. Soon the donkeys stand ready once more. Their loads are substantial. The journey back toward the storage yards begins. The road now resembles a slow-moving river of workers and animals. Everywhere grain is being transported. Everywhere people are laboring. Everywhere movement fills the landscape. The handler notices familiar faces from earlier travels. Farmers. Merchants. Other donkey handlers. The harvest brings many lives together. People who normally work in separate places now share the same roads. Conversations drift through the air. Most focus on crops, weather, storage capacity, future deliveries, practical matters, the concerns of ordinary people living ordinary lives. As the morning advances, the sun climbs higher. The heat gradually returns. Workers adjust their pace. Shade becomes increasingly valuable. Water becomes increasingly important. Yet the work continues. The harvest cannot wait. Grain left exposed too long risks damage. Storage facilities must be filled while conditions remain favorable. The handler presses onward. His feet know the road. His hands know the ropes. His body knows the work. Years of experience guide every movement. The storage yards eventually appear ahead. Large mud brick structures stand near the edge of the town. Laborers move constantly between entrances. The activity is remarkable. Animals arrive loaded. Animals depart empty. Workers carry sacks. Scribes record deliveries. Supervisors monitor inventory. The entire system functions like a living thing. Each person performs a role. Each task supports another. The handler joins the line of arriving transports. Patience is required. Many deliveries await processing. No one seems frustrated. This is simply how harvest season works. Eventually his turn arrives. The grain is unloaded. The sacks disappear into storage. Records are updated. The handler receives instructions for another journey. There will be many today. Perhaps more tomorrow. Perhaps more the day after that. Harvest season rarely ends quickly. By midday, the sun blazes overhead. The storage yard hums with activity. Dust fills the air. Voices rise and fall. Animals stand beneath whatever shade they can find. The handler pauses briefly beside a water jar. The cool drink feels wonderful. Nearby, several laborers rest against a wall. Their faces show fatigue, yet also determination. Everyone understands the importance of this work. The harvest supports entire communities. The grain moving through these yards will feed families long after the fields stand empty. The handler sits for a few moments beneath a patch of shade. The breeze is weak but welcome. He watches the endless flow of activity. Sacks arriving. Sacks departing. Workers moving. Animals walking. The scene seems almost endless. Yet beneath all the movement lies a comforting truth. Life continues. The seasons continue. The Nile continues. Each year brings planting. Each year brings harvest. Each year brings another cycle of work and rest. The handler finds peace in that rhythm. A rhythm older than memory itself. Soon he rises once more. The donkeys are waiting. Another load awaits transport. Another road awaits travel. And beneath the bright Egyptian sun, amid the busiest season of the year, the donkey handler returns to the steady work that quietly helps feed an entire kingdom. The harvest season settles over the Nile Valley like a long, steady tide. Every road seems busier than before. Every storage yard seems fuller. Every village hums with the quiet effort of people preparing for the months ahead. The donkey handler feels the change everywhere he goes. For many weeks now, his days have begun before sunrise and ended long after the evening sky fills with stars. The work is not dramatic. It is not celebrated. Yet it never seems to stop. As the morning continues, he guides his donkeys away from the crowded grain depot and back toward the fields. The road stretches beside irrigation channels that sparkle beneath the sunlight. Farmers move through the landscape carrying tools and bundles of harvested grain. Children help where they can. Older family members sit beneath shade, sorting and preparing crops for storage. The entire countryside appears connected by a shared purpose. Everyone understands what must be done. The grain must be gathered. The grain must be protected. The grain must be stored safely. Future meals depend upon it. The donkey handler walks steadily. Dust clings to his sandals. His shoulders feel sore from many days of labor. Yet he keeps moving. The donkeys keep moving. Step after step. Load after load. The rhythm has become almost endless. Ahead, another collection area comes into view. Workers are already busy. Large stacks of bundled grain stand beneath temporary shelters made from reeds and poles. The smell of straw fills the air. Voices drift across the fields. Not loud voices. Simply the sounds of people working together. The handler joins the activity. His donkeys are positioned carefully. Workers begin loading fresh sacks. Each one is heavy. Each one represents many hours of labor in the fields. The handler watches closely. Balance matters. Comfort matters. A well-loaded animal can travel much farther without difficulty. The loading continues. One sack. Then another. Then another. Soon the donkeys stand ready. The handler checks the ropes. Everything appears secure. The journey begins again. The road toward the storage depot feels even busier than before. Long lines of transport animals move in both directions. Some carry grain. Others carry supplies for workers. A few carry clay jars filled with water. The harvest season creates its own temporary world. A world of movement and cooperation. A world where thousands of ordinary people work quietly toward the same goal. The handler notices another donkey caravan approaching from the south. The animals carry grain much like his own. The handlers exchange greetings as they pass. No lengthy conversation is necessary. Both understand the demands of the season. Both know the road ahead. Both know the fatigue that arrives after weeks of constant labor. The sun continues climbing. The air grows warmer. The pace remains steady. Nobody rushes. Rushing only leads to mistakes. The harvest requires patience. The handler learned that lesson many years ago. As midday approaches, he reaches a stretch of road overlooking the Nile. The river shines brightly beneath the sun. Dozens of boats move across its surface. Many carry grain as well. The harvest is not confined to the roads. The river shares the burden. Large vessels transport enormous quantities of supplies between settlements. From this distance, the boats appear peaceful. Almost graceful. Their sails catch the breeze. Their shadows glide across the water. The handler pauses briefly. The donkeys drink from a nearby watering place. The moment of rest feels welcome. He watches the river. The sight calms him. No matter how busy the season becomes, the Nile always seems unhurried. Its waters move steadily. Patiently. The same way they have for generations. The same way they will continue long after today's harvest is forgotten. Soon the journey resumes. The grain depot grows larger ahead. The familiar buildings stand against the bright sky. Workers move constantly around them. The activity seems even greater than yesterday. Perhaps more grain has arrived. Perhaps more storage space has been prepared. The exact reason hardly matters. What matters is the work. The grain must keep moving. The handler joins the line of arriving transports. Slowly the queue advances. Animals wait quietly. Handlers rest where they can. Some sit in patches of shade. Others drink water. A few simply close their eyes for a moment. Everyone looks tired. Not unhappy. Just tired. The honest fatigue that follows useful labor. Eventually the unloading begins. The sacks disappear into storage buildings. Workers carry them away with practiced efficiency. Scribes sit nearby recording deliveries. Brushes move across papyrus. Numbers are written. Records are updated. The system continues functioning smoothly despite the enormous volume of activity. The handler watches for a while. Every person contributes something. The farmers grow the grain. The laborers move it. The scribes record it. The boatmen transport it. The donkey handlers connect everything together. No single task stands above the others. All are necessary. By early afternoon, the sun becomes intense. Heat shimmers above the ground. The air feels heavy. Even breathing seems to require extra effort. Work slows slightly. Not because people wish to stop. Because the body demands caution. The handler leads the donkeys toward a shaded area near the edge of the depot. There they rest. Water is shared. The animals lower their heads gratefully. The handler sits against a mud brick wall. For a few moments he does nothing at all. The shade feels wonderful. Nearby, several workers have fallen asleep. Only briefly. Only enough to recover some strength before returning to their duties. The handler closes his eyes. The sounds of the depot continue around him. Voices. Footsteps. Animals shifting in the dust. The distant call of a boatman somewhere along the river. Together they blend into a soft background rhythm. A rhythm that feels almost soothing. Almost peaceful. Eventually he opens his eyes again. The afternoon has begun its slow movement toward evening. The hardest heat will not last forever. It never does. The sun rises. The sun falls. The seasons change. The harvest arrives. The harvest ends. Life moves in cycles. The handler often finds comfort in that thought. Nothing remains difficult forever. Even the busiest season eventually passes. For now, however, the work continues. Another shipment awaits. Another road stretches ahead. Another journey begins. The donkeys rise. The ropes are checked. The handler gathers his things. Then, beneath the white Egyptian sky and surrounded by countless other workers preparing for the future, he steps back onto the dusty road and continues the quiet labor that helps sustain life along the Nile. The days continue passing beneath the warm Egyptian sun. One harvest journey blends gently into the next. The donkey handler wakes before dawn. He feeds the animals. He checks the ropes. He walks the roads beside the Nile. Then evening comes. Night settles over the land. And the cycle begins again. For many weeks now, this rhythm has shaped nearly every hour of his life. The busiest part of the harvest season has arrived. The grain depots are fuller than ever. The roads carry a constant stream of workers and transport animals. Boats crowd the riverbanks. Storage buildings receive deliveries from sunrise until darkness. Yet even in these busy days, moments of quiet still exist. The donkey handler notices them. A cool breeze before dawn. The reflection of sunlight on calm water. The distant sound of birds lifting from the reeds. Small moments hidden between larger tasks. This morning begins much like the others. The eastern sky brightens slowly. Stars fade one by one. The Nile reflects pale shades of silver and blue. The handler walks beside his donkeys as the world awakens around him. The road is already active. Several grain convoys move ahead. Others travel behind. The animals carry heavy sacks balanced carefully across their backs. Dust rises beneath countless hooves. Yet despite the activity, there is little noise. Most workers save their energy. Conversations remain brief. The road settles into a quiet rhythm of movement. Step after step. Mile after mile. The handler has traveled these routes so often that he knows every bend. Every grove of palm trees. Every watering place. Every patch of shade. The landscape feels familiar. Comforting. almost like an extension of home. As morning progresses, he approaches one of the largest granary complexes in the region. The buildings rise above the surrounding countryside. Tall walls built from mud bricks stand beneath the bright sky. Nearby storage yards stretch across large areas of land. Workers move everywhere. Some carry grain. Others repair equipment. Others organize incoming deliveries. The sight is impressive. Not because it is grand. Because it represents the labor of thousands. Every sack stored here passed through many hands. Every pile of grain represents months of effort. Farmers planted seeds. Families watered fields. Workers harvested crops. Transporters carried loads. The entire process required cooperation. The handler enters the busy yard. The donkeys join a line of arriving animals. Nearby, scribes record deliveries beneath shaded shelters. Laborers direct traffic. Supervisors inspect storage areas. Despite the enormous activity, everything feels orderly. People know their responsibilities. The system has been practiced for generations. Soon the grain is unloaded. The sacks disappear into storage buildings. Fresh space becomes available for the next delivery. The work never seems to stop. Yet somehow it continues smoothly. The handler watches for a few moments. Then he moves aside and allows the next convoy to proceed. The morning sun climbs higher. The air gradually warms. Workers wipe sweat from their brows. Animals search for shade whenever possible. The harvest season demands endurance. Every person feels it. The handler certainly does. His shoulders remain sore most days. His feet ache. His hands have grown rough from ropes and equipment. Yet the work continues. And strangely, there is comfort in that. The predictability. The routine. The simple knowledge of what needs to be done. By midday, the roads become even busier. Convoys arrive from distant villages. Boats unload cargo along nearby riverbanks. The granaries fill steadily. The Nile itself seems involved in the harvest. Its waters carry supplies north and south. Its banks support countless communities. Its presence touches everything. The handler eventually receives a new assignment. Several loads must be moved from a riverside unloading area to temporary storage sheds. The distance is not far. Still, the work requires time. The donkeys are loaded once more. The handler begins walking. The route follows a section of the river. The water sparkles beneath the bright afternoon sun. Boats drift slowly nearby. Some are loaded with grain. Others carry workers. A few transport pottery, textiles, and other goods. Life along the Nile never truly stops. The handler pauses briefly near the water. The donkeys drink. He splashes cool water across his face. The relief feels wonderful. For a few moments, the heat becomes easier to bear. Nearby, reeds sway in the breeze. Small birds dart between them. The scene feels peaceful despite the busy season. Nature continues its own rhythm regardless of human schedules. The river flows. The wind blows. The birds fly. The harvest comes and goes. The world remains. As afternoon slowly drifts toward evening, the pace of work begins to soften. Not because tasks are complete. Because workers are growing tired. The season has lasted many weeks. Everyone feels the weight of continuous labor. The handler notices it in the faces around him. People move more carefully. More deliberately. The energy of early harvest has given way to quiet determination. Yet there is also satisfaction. The granaries are filling. The crops are being secured. The future feels safer. The work is accomplishing its purpose. Towards sunset, the handler joins a group of traveling workers preparing to spend the night near the granary complex. The next day's assignments begin early. Returning to distant villages would waste valuable time. Temporary camps have appeared near the storage yards. Nothing elaborate. Just simple shelters. Cooking fires. Places to sleep. Places to rest tired bodies. As darkness approaches, the camp becomes active. Meals are prepared. Water is shared. Workers gather in small groups. The atmosphere feels calm. Almost gentle. The hardest part of the day is over. The handler sits beside a small fire. The flames flicker softly. Nearby, other workers eat their evening meals. A boatman discusses river conditions. A farmer speaks about his village's harvest. Another donkey handler quietly repairs a worn rope. No one speaks loudly. Everyone is tired. The kind of tiredness that encourages silence rather than conversation. Above them, the sky gradually fills with stars. One by one they appear. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The camp grows quieter. The fires burn lower. The air cools. The handler leans back and looks upward. The stars seem especially bright away from larger settlements. Their light stretches across the heavens like scattered silver dust. For a while, he simply watches. There is no need to think about tomorrow. Tomorrow will arrive on its own. For now there is only the evening breeze. Only the glow of fading firelight. Only the distant sound of the Nile moving through the darkness. The donkeys rest nearby. The workers rest nearby. The harvest continues. Yet in this moment, everything feels still. Peaceful. Safe. And beneath the endless night sky of ancient Egypt, the donkey handler slowly closes his eyes while another quiet harvest evening settles over the Nile Valley. The harvest season does not end all at once. It leaves slowly. Almost quietly. 1 week, the roads remain crowded with grain convoys and busy workers. The next week, there seem to be slightly fewer travelers. A few days later, more storage yards stand empty. The constant movement begins to soften. The donkey handler notices these changes little by little. One morning, as he rises before dawn beside the granary camp, he hears fewer voices than usual. The cooking fires are fewer. The lines of waiting animals are shorter. Even the roads seem calmer. The great rush of harvest is beginning to pass. The eastern horizon brightens. A pale band of light appears above the distant fields. The stars fade. A cool breeze moves across the Nile Valley. The handler steps outside and stretches his tired muscles. Many weeks of steady labor have left their mark upon him. His shoulders feel stronger than before. His legs have grown accustomed to long journeys. His hands are rough from countless ropes and loads. The donkeys have changed as well. They move with the steady confidence of animals that know their work. Together they have traveled hundreds of miles during the harvest season. Together they have carried grain from field to granary, from village to river port, from river port to storage yard. The work has been demanding. Yet it has also brought a certain satisfaction. The grain now rests safely behind thick walls. Families will eat because of it. Villages will survive because of it. The Nile Valley has prepared itself for the future. As the morning unfolds, the handler receives another assignment. Several final deliveries remain. The loads are smaller than before. The urgency has faded. There is no longer a sense of racing against time. The harvest has largely been secured. Now comes the quieter work of organizing and distributing supplies. The donkeys are loaded. The handler begins walking. The road stretches ahead beneath the gentle light of dawn. The landscape feels different. Not dramatically different. Just calmer. More settled. Fields that recently swarmed with workers now stand quiet. The grain has been gathered. Only stubble remains in many places. Farmers move through the fields inspecting their land and preparing for future tasks. The busiest season has passed. A period of recovery is beginning. The handler walks steadily beside the Nile. The river remains unchanged. It flows with the same quiet confidence as always. Harvest or no harvest. Busy roads or empty roads. The Nile continues. There is comfort in that. Some things remain constant. The handler often finds himself watching the water during these quieter days. Its steady movement seems to slow his thoughts. Its calm surface reflects the sky. Its presence fills the landscape with peace. The morning grows warmer. Birds fly low above the reeds. Fishermen guide boats through the gentle current. Children can be seen near distant villages helping with smaller chores. Life continues. Only the rhythm has changed. By midday, the handler reaches a riverside settlement. Several deliveries are completed. The merchants receiving the goods seem less hurried than they did weeks earlier. They have time now. Time to organize. Time to plan. Time to breathe. The handler notices the difference immediately. The entire settlement feels more relaxed. The pressure of harvest has eased. People smile more often. Conversations last longer. Workers pause in the shade without constantly watching the road for the next convoy. The season is changing. And everyone feels it. After completing his deliveries, the handler rests beneath a cluster of palm trees overlooking the river. The shade is pleasant. The breeze feels cool. Nearby, the donkeys graze quietly. The handler closes his eyes for a moment. Not to sleep. Just to enjoy the stillness. The harvest season has demanded much from him. These peaceful moments feel precious. Around him, the sounds of ordinary life drift through the air. A fisherman repairing a net. A woman carrying water. Children laughing in the distance. The creak of a boat rope. The rustle of palm leaves. Simple sounds. Gentle sounds. The sounds of a world returning to balance. As afternoon approaches, he resumes his journey. The road leading south feels quieter than it has in many weeks. Occasionally another traveler appears. A merchant. A farmer. A laborer heading home. Yet the endless convoys of harvest are gone. The dust clouds have settled. The countryside seems to breathe again. The handler finds himself enjoying the slower pace. There is more time to notice things. The shape of clouds drifting across the sky. The reflection of sunlight on irrigation channels. The songs of birds hidden among reeds. During the busiest weeks, such details were easy to miss. Work demanded attention. Now the world feels wider. Softer. More peaceful. As evening approaches, he arrives at a village he visited earlier in the season. The difference is remarkable. The grain collection areas stand mostly empty. Temporary shelters have been dismantled. Workers who once labored from dawn until darkness now spend evenings with their families. Children play near doorways. Cooking fires burn steadily. The village feels relaxed. Content. The handler is welcomed warmly. People remember him. Many transport workers became familiar faces during the harvest months. The roads created friendships of a quiet sort. Not deep friendships perhaps, but connections built through shared effort, shared fatigue, shared purpose. As the sun lowers toward the horizon, the handler sits beside the village edge and watches the fields glowing in golden light. The harvest is finished here. The land rests. The workers rest. Even the air seems calmer. A flock of birds crosses the sky. Their dark shapes move against the warm colors of sunset. The Nile reflects gold and copper. The world feels peaceful. The handler takes a deep breath. For the first time in many weeks, there is no urgency waiting for him tomorrow. There will still be work. There is always work. Goods must still be transported. Markets still need supplies. Villages still depend upon trade. But the intensity has faded. The great rush has passed. Night gradually settles across the land. Stars appear overhead. Families gather for evening meals. Voices grow quieter. The handler feels a pleasant heaviness in his body. The harvest season has taken much of his strength. Yet it has also filled him with a quiet sense of accomplishment. He has walked the roads. He has carried the loads. He has helped move the harvest. And now, as the Nile Valley slowly enters a calmer chapter, he finds himself surrounded by something rare. Not excitement. Not celebration. Simply peace. The peaceful feeling that comes when difficult work has been completed. The peaceful feeling of a cool evening after a long season. The peaceful feeling of sitting beneath the stars while the Nile flows steadily through the darkness, carrying another day gently into history. The calmer season settles gently across the Nile Valley. The great harvest convoys have mostly disappeared now. The roads remain useful, as they always will, but they no longer carry endless streams of grain-laden animals from dawn until dusk. The donkey handler notices the difference immediately. The mornings feel quieter. The villages feel less hurried. The river towns seem able to breathe again. One cool morning, before sunrise, he awakens in the small village where he spent the previous night. The air carries the faint scent of damp earth from the nearby river. Above him, countless stars still shine. For a few moments he remains lying on his reed mat, listening. There is no shouting from busy granaries. No lines of waiting convoys. Only the distant sound of water and the occasional call of a bird somewhere in the darkness. The quiet feels almost unusual after so many demanding weeks. Eventually he rises. Outside, the eastern horizon is beginning to glow. A pale ribbon of light stretches across the land. The first signs of dawn arrive slowly. The donkey handler walks toward the animals. The donkeys greet him with familiar sounds. Their harvest work is finished as well. The animals seem calmer these days. Their loads are lighter. Their journeys shorter. The pace of life has softened. The handler prepares feed and fresh water. The donkeys eat quietly. Nearby, smoke begins rising from village cooking fires. The smell of bread soon follows. Across ancient Egypt, countless families begin their mornings in much the same way. Bread baking. Water being carried. Tools being gathered. The routines of ordinary life continuing as they always have. As the sun rises, the handler receives a small transport assignment. Nothing urgent. A merchant requires several jars and bundles of cloth delivered to a neighboring settlement. Compared to the harvest season, the task feels remarkably simple. The cargo is prepared. The ropes are secured. The donkeys are loaded. Then the journey begins. The road follows the Nile for much of the morning. Golden sunlight spreads across the water. Birds rise from the reeds. Palm trees cast long shadows across the earth. The handler walks beside the animals at an easy pace. There is no pressure to rush. The merchant expects the goods later today. Not immediately. That small difference changes everything. The road itself seems more peaceful. The handler notices details he might have overlooked during the harvest. A fisherman patiently repairing a net. A child chasing birds from a garden. An elderly woman sitting beneath a tree, weaving baskets from reeds. Simple scenes. Ordinary scenes. The scenes that fill most human lives. The farther he travels, the more he realizes how much of Egypt exists outside moments of great activity. Most days are not harvest days. Most days are not festivals. Most days are simply people living their lives. Working. Eating. Resting. Caring for families. Preparing for tomorrow. The handler belongs to this world. And he feels comfortable within it. As the morning continues, he arrives at a small riverside settlement. The village seems peaceful. Children play beside the water. Several fishermen unload modest catches from their boats. Women carry clay jars balanced carefully on their heads. The pace feels slow. Unhurried. The handler completes his delivery. The merchant thanks him. The jars are unloaded. The cloth is carried inside a storage building. The task is finished. There is no immediate assignment waiting afterward. That would have been impossible during harvest season. Now it is perfectly normal. The handler finds a place beneath a large palm tree and sits down. The shade feels pleasant. A gentle breeze moves through the leaves overhead. Nearby, the Nile flows quietly past. The water glitters beneath the sunlight. The handler watches it for a long time. The river seems especially beautiful during these quieter weeks. Perhaps because he finally has time to notice it. The harvest demanded constant attention. Now his mind can wander. He watches boats moving slowly along the water. Some carry goods. Some carry passengers. Others belong to fishermen. Each boat leaves a faint trail behind it before disappearing farther along the river. The sight feels peaceful. Time passes slowly. The handler enjoys that. Many people spend their lives wishing time would move faster. Ancient workers often feel the opposite. Moments of rest are precious. Moments without urgency are precious. The breeze continues. The river continues. The morning drifts gently toward midday. Eventually the handler rises and begins the journey home. The donkeys seem content. Their burdens are light. The road ahead is familiar. As he walks, he notices farmers preparing fields for future seasons. Harvest may be over, but agricultural work never truly ends. The land requires constant care. Irrigation channels must be maintained. Tools repaired. Fields inspected. Life along the Nile follows endless cycles. One season leads naturally into another. Nothing remains the same forever. Yet nothing feels entirely new either. Everything returns. Again and again. The handler understands this deeply. His own life follows similar rhythms. Journeys begin. Journeys end. Loads are carried. Loads are unloaded. Days pass. Years pass. The road continues. By afternoon, clouds drift across portions of the sky. Their shadows move slowly over fields and riverbanks. The heat feels less intense than it did during harvest. Workers seem more relaxed. Several travelers pause to talk along the roadside. No one appears hurried. The season itself seems to encourage patience. As evening approaches, the handler reaches the outskirts of his home village. The sight brings quiet comfort. Mud brick homes glow softly beneath the lowering sun. Cooking fires have already begun burning. Children run through narrow pathways. Dogs wander between houses. The familiar world of home surrounds him. The donkeys are led back to their enclosure. Water is provided. Feed is distributed. The animals settle in for the evening. The handler strokes the neck of one old gray donkey. The animal lowers its head slightly. Together they have shared many roads. Many seasons. Many years. The handler feels grateful for that simple companionship. The sun finally reaches the horizon. Warm colors spread across the sky. Gold becomes orange. Orange becomes red. The Nile reflects the changing light. Everything appears softer. Gentler. The village begins settling into its nighttime routine. Families gather for meals. Voices drift through open doorways. Lamps flicker to life. The handler sits outside his home and watches the evening unfold. There is nowhere he needs to be. Nothing urgent demanding attention. Only the fading light. Only the cool breeze. Only the familiar sounds of village life. For a long while he remains there. Watching. Listening. Resting. And as darkness slowly spreads across the Nile Valley once again, the donkey handler finds himself surrounded by a simple kind of happiness. Not excitement. Not celebration. Just the quiet comfort of being home after a long season of work, while the stars begin appearing above ancient Egypt and the river continues its endless journey through the night. The evening grows quieter. The village settles into sleep one house at a time. The last cooking fires burn low beneath the darkening sky. Voices fade behind mud brick walls. Lamps flicker softly and then disappear into the night. The donkey handler remains seated for a little while longer outside his home. The air is cool now. A gentle breeze drifts from the Nile. Somewhere nearby, a donkey shifts quietly in its enclosure. The familiar sound brings a small feeling of comfort. It is a sound he has heard through countless evenings and countless seasons. Above him, the stars shine brightly. The same stars that watched over the harvest. The same stars that watched over long roads, crowded markets, peaceful villages, and slow journeys beside the river. The years have passed one day at a time. One sunrise. One load. One road. One evening. Then another. And another. The great monuments of Egypt may endure for centuries. The names of kings may be carved into stone. But the life of the donkey handler belonged to something different. A quieter story. A smaller story. The story of ordinary work. Of dusty roads and warm mornings. Of tired feet and simple meals. Of helping carry the countless burdens that allowed villages, farms, workshops, and families to continue from one season to the next. Most people who lived beside the Nile left no monuments behind. No grand inscriptions. No records that survived the passing centuries. Yet they lived. They worked. They laughed. They rested beneath the evening sky. And their days filled the ancient world with life. The donkey handler slowly rises. The stars reflect faintly upon the distant waters of the Nile. The river continues flowing through the darkness. Steady. Patient. Unhurried. As it always has. As it always will. He steps inside his home. The room is simple. Familiar. Peaceful. A reed mat waits nearby. The oil lamp burns softly. Then softer still. Outside, the village grows silent. The dogs sleep. The donkeys sleep. The farmers sleep. The fishermen sleep. The potters sleep. The merchants sleep. The laborers sleep. The entire Nile Valley rests beneath a blanket of stars. The river whispers quietly beyond the fields. The breeze moves gently through the reeds. The night deepens. The lamp finally fades. Darkness settles softly across the room. And somewhere beside the ancient Nile, in a world of mud brick homes, dusty roads, warm sunlight, and ordinary lives, another peaceful day slips gently into history. The stars remain overhead. The river continues its endless journey. And the quiet night carries everything else into silence. Sleep well, and let the ancient Nile drift softly into the distance.